And welcome everyone to this exciting episode of Riding Through the Unknown. Today's episode, I want to give a little shout out about it before we get started. And one shout out I want to make is thank you to Susan and Danny for coming back on the show. This is their second appearance, so thank you for that. And this is Rogue Dragon's first appearance, so thank you for that as well. And tonight's episode, we are going to be delving into some topics that are near and dear to us, and I feel like don't get enough attention, and so I'm hoping that this will help start to shine light upon it. And one of those is the fact that when we think of the secret space program and all the military aspects of it, most people's topics and guests are all males. And so I am shining light on the fact that women are in it just as much as the men, doing just the same kind of background stuff, whether it's combat, doing negotiations, or, menial work. We all probably have done it all, but I want to be honest and upfront in saying that, yes, women are in it equally as the men. So I want to say thank you to all the women of the SSP for what you've done and the parts that you do that men can't do. So thank you for that, and thank you to my guests for coming on. And so tonight we are going to be doing a little bit different of an episode. We're going to be talking about the positive light side of the SSP. And I know a lot of you are probably in your seats sitting there going, wait, there's a light side? There's a light to this, or a goodness? So stay tuned, because prepared to be wowed. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Danny, and we'll let everyone do a short introduction.
Hello, everybody. So I I guess I've been involved in the program since I was born, child, all the way until now. I started really getting a lot of memories back in 2013, 2014. Even though as a child I had some things and some memories, but I didn't really put it all together until I was an adult. So I've been in, unfortunately, most of the factions in one form or another, and I have that now. Only active in parts that I choose, I guess you could say. Rogue. Did I cut out? I think my computers. I mean, my internet's already being weird.
It got a little weird, but you came back, so we heard you
Okay.
finish.
Of course.
So everybody that watches this show is well aware that they love to play with the internet and volume of guests that have been on here. And so I'm going to turn it over to Susan to give a little introduction to who she is, and we'll save the new one for last.
Hi, I'm Susan, and my contact begins at age 2 with like these T-Rex looking creatures coming in my bedroom window. Then it went to, there was contact with ETs. Then there was ETs in military. But I swear the Mater were with the Air Force, because I remember being.
Oh, Susan, we lost your audio. This is part of the fun of lives, and
Can you hear me?
we can hear you now.
Okay, they're playing games. I've been getting a lot of V2K today because they've been telling me to shoot myself. So this doesn't surprise me. Shoot, what was it just?
You were introducing yourself and the T-Rexes in the military and the
Oh,
ETs in the
okay.
military.
And then I had the Men in Black at 6 and then 5 I was taken to the Fey world. Came back and Montauk got me as soon as I went there. Because they wanted me because I knew all about the Fey stuff. Then did have some cool time travel stuff where I remember going into the Victorian era and getting some Da Vinci wings with the Sonero Aero Club. And then we had a lot of the Hulk program. I was in the Jean Grey program, all kinds of programs. And they used us as ambassadors. Then we'd go to collect ancient artifacts off of different asteroids and planets and stuff. Shoot, I remember like they would twin us with people, but I don't remember being twins, but I remember who they assigned me with and watching them activate different DNA and seeing each of us being sent back, like we'd get punished and sent back to different places. When I tried to escape one time, but I remember trying to escape quite a few times. Um, I don't have any memories of brothels or anything. I have those as a child. They would did that stuff till I was 14 when they took my first baby that I had in the programs, and I remember who ate it too. And 2 of those people are still alive, and they're politicians. Um, But a lot of the stuff we were going back and forth. I remember I didn't want to have any children. I don't know if anybody else, well, actually, I do know one other lady that was Aubrey. I didn't want to have any children because I was afraid the government would kidnap them. And I knew I wasn't supposed to talk about my gifts. I was remote viewing with bilocation at age 9 in my bathtub in Delaware when I saw my best friend that got lost, and she was scared. She was also 9. That's the first time I remember remote viewing with bilocation. And they were specifically looking for our bloodlines because they wanted people that could do that. And they considered us closer to God, because I actually remember them telling me when they were doing satanic rituals and mocking me, go ahead and cry out for your God. That was real funny to them. They got a bigger kick out of torturing those that they considered closer to God. I don't know. We did a lot of everything. There was soldiering. I remember going into, actually that was Vicky Overton was working in a nursery on one ship I was in. I remember I had a blue smart suit on that time because I was doing well, in the police world, doing command presence where, you know, you got chest puffed up and your shoulders all wide, just walking like you got to stick up your ass because your gun belt's heavy too, but you walk kind of funny like a cowboy. I remember walking in there like that with the command present. So I know I was soldiering then. And she had my baby there because I remember looking at it and leaving. And I was fond of her. But see, I also remember her in the nursery, but she was also out on patrol with me. I remember being out at nighttime on a planet, and we got our we had these black rifles that we had, but they were more sleek and tech looking. It wasn't like an M16. It looks like something from like a game almost. Shoot, I know we had names for them, but I'm having a blank right now. And my trauma twin was there. Vicky was there, and I remember her up front because she kept looking, and we had suits on, and some of our suits were like almost like the original Superman. Not the original Superman, but the first one where they had the cute Superman. Because I always thought the other Supermans looked gay, but that Superman now doesn't. But remember the bad guys when they came in there, you would just think of it and your helmet would come on because it was hooked in your DNA. But when we were in these suits, they couldn't get them off of us. Only we could get them off. That's what I remember. So they were actually anti-rape devices too, because nobody ever tried to come and rape you as one person. It would be pirates that had gotten on a ship one time, and we killed all of them. And then I cut off, you know, they didn't rape anybody, but I would cut off their twig and berries and shove it down their throats so they'd know what they were accused of by me. That was my calling card because I hate rapists, I hate pedophiles, always have, always will. And I didn't want any of my kids to go in these programs and try to get my tubes tied at 18 because in the back of my head, I knew I didn't want to have any children because they would take them. And I remember my youngest child would brag to people at this Christian daycare he was going to, and he's like, I can talk to my mommy when she's not there, because we would telepath each other. And I said, no, he's in first grade doing this. And I said, you can't tell people that because somebody's going to kidnap you and I'll never see you again. Do you understand this? Please stop telling people you can do that, because we could actually I remember I did this to him one day. He was 6. And he said, Mommy, he's like, let's do something. I said, I'm going to give you a butterfly kiss, because he loved those when he was little. He thought they were hilarious when I told him to put butterfly kisses, and he would just giggle. So I said, what time's lunch? Because he said he saw me. And I said, okay. I was thinking of you then. That was me. So I said, I'll do it tomorrow. And I knew what time I was going to do it because I already had it planned. So I was sitting there at home, and I'm just, like, okay, I'm giving you a butterfly kiss. And he told me what time it was, and it was the time I sent it. Because we can really do that, but I didn't want, and they would use me to do that with aliens too, because I could go in and they'd think, oh, that's a human, but I'm not just a human, because I can shapeshift. I don't really know why, other than I think it's part of my bloodline being from the Tuatha the Fae bloodline in Ireland, but I'm also a dragon bloodline, so I shapeshift to a dragon. It's subtle, but you can see it. I've got pictures of me shifting back where you can see the scales on my décolleté and my eyes and bones shift in my head. And then I also do the lion one where my eyes kind of go. So I kind of have ojos de China. And then a cat lip. My upper lip gets all puffy like a Lyran. So I look a lot like a Lyran, but not like the Lyran I saw the SETI that was with the girl doing the cranial sacral therapy, because hers was, I didn't have fur on my face, but hers had fur, and it was short haired, and it was, bipedal humanoid, and it was human and standing there just like a human, at the end of the table, but its back was against the wall. And I still don't know why they don't look at me when I talk, because I'll telepath and they just do this, like all of them. None of the guides will look at me. And her name was Sia. She told me, because I got all excited, and when I see the Lyrans, I get this really high feeling, and I was literally vibrating off the table this much. I was on the sides of the massage table because I thought I was going to fall off and hurt myself. And I kind of fanned out when I saw her, because I was hoping to see Bigfoot at ESETI. But I get a Lyran instead, because I was getting messages, we can't wait to see you. And I'm thinking, who the hell is it? But I got downloads from them and remembered Lyra. But I also saw my Lyran aspect, because my guide's like, take a picture. So I took a picture and saw the Lyran. I was like, wow, that's kind of wild. I didn't know we could do all that stuff. But there's so much more things between heaven and earth than they've let on. And shoot, I would actually say, get up with me privately if you think you've had any of these handlers bother you, because recently I had 2 people tell me that I was being siphoned and I was having an issue at night. And at first I thought, oh, this is my imagination, right? Because I felt like somebody tried to touch me sexually. And I wasn't really asleep. I was just kind of laying there. I was like, what the hell? And there's nobody there. And apparently, from being with somebody who had multiple partners, I was being siphoned. Not cool, because I only have one partner at a time. Heteromonogamous and territorial. So I had to clear all that. Which wasn't fun, but now I'm sleeping a lot better and I got more energy. I'm not so exhausted.
Oh, good. And now we're going to give Rogue Dragon some time to introduce herself for the first time on this show.
Thanks so much for having me on. A lot of different things. I started around 3 years old. I was in the Mormon church. I've since left after some near-death experiences and lots of questions. I do have memories of between 3 and 5. We had a house that kind of had a little ramp type driveway that went up to a kitty corner garage. My dad had made this little horse on wheels, and I remember being on it, went a little bit too fast, and I fell off of it, but instead of hitting the ground, I was hovering, and I just thought it was funny, and I was giggling, and my dad's freaking out, trying to see if I'm okay, and he couldn't figure out why I wasn't hurt, but I don't think he saw me do that. And then just a lot of different things. There's just like so much to hit. I was taken from school quite often. I started out kindergarten at Fort Worth, and then my dad was in the military, so we moved down about 1st to 4th grade. I was at John Glenn Elementary School, and that's when we were going from the LD class. Basically, I'd get to school, we'd do the Pledge of Allegiance and everything. Excuse me. And then I'd go to LD, we'd do some flashcards, and then they would say, okay, it's time to go. And there were 2 other kids that would go with me, Darlene and Frank. Darlene was this blonde Caucasian girl, and Frank was an African-American kid that we went together. And that's where I remembered you, Mike, because we would all meet up in this underground train station, which I'm even trying to remember exactly which mall. Sometimes we would have trainings there. Sometimes we would train off and go to either a Montauk, or we would go up to British Columbia, is where I figured out one of the DUMS was. And we would interface with little people, fairies, different types of things. Where one of my very fond memories was when we would talk to the little people about that big, and sometimes they would glow. Some of them had wings, some of them didn't. And I remember we were giggling one day, just thinking, God, I wish we could fly too. And we all started floating. And we were up high enough that the guards were freaking out because no kids were there. And they're like, where's the kids? We were just up the top, but just kind of floating up there. Goodness, some of the stuff. It's like as Susan was talking, it was triggering different memories. But as a teenager, I would go to youth activities. And a lot of times we were taken to DUMS over in Carthage, Missouri. And backtracking, about 5 years old. And my sister was about 4, 3.5, somewhere in there. We're about 18 months apart, stair steps, the 3 sisters, and then it spreads out. There's 5 siblings, family, but we were in Price, Utah, and visiting grandma and grandpa, and she took us to the Mormon church over in Elmo, and they put us on school buses and then drove us out. I just remember kind of daydreaming, watching the road, but there was this creepy old lady that was sitting across the seat from me that just kept looking at me, and I did not like her. And then we were going through a tunnel, which I'm trying to figure out if it was on I-70 going to Denver, or if we were going up to Electric Lake over in Huntington. Excuse me. I'm trying to think if they have a tunnel there. So most likely it was probably towards Denver. And I just remember it was a really long drive. And then we were in a tunnel, and then all of a sudden the bus just goes into the wall. And it was like a hologram, because the wall disappeared, and we were in another tunnel driving, and it was hypnotic, because like when you're driving at night, you can kind of see the lights as they pass, and it's just and it kept getting faster and faster and faster and faster, and I felt really dizzy. And then when I looked at the old lady, she wasn't an old lady anymore. She was like this lizard looking person, and I was terrified and crying and screaming. And the next thing I know is I'm in a kind of like cell that was concrete, and it had a little bed that was just a concrete platform about 3 feet off the ground. There was a toilet and a sink, and it was just big enough for someone to basically lay down, and it had a little pad, maybe about that thick. It wasn't really comfortable. But all my clothing was removed, of course. And then above me, there was this grate that kind of reminds me of those drainage grates that you see in the streets that kind of are gridded. And that creature would taunt me and stick its tongue through until it's like just bizarre, gross things and unmentionables that, shouldn't be happening to children. They did a lot of torture, a lot of fear things. A lot of the things I blacked out on because I was so terrified. I remember in Montauk, we were put into like dog kennel type crates, like the cages, and sometimes they would take like car batteries and connect battery cables to them, and then they would spray us with a hose. And to this day, I get pissed if I get sprayed with a fucking hose. I'm like, don't spray me with cold water. I hate cold water. I hate deep water. Oh, I get mad. But we would get shocked, and it would just make us mad. It would make us cry. It would hurt. It would just, I remember we would pass out. There was another memory I had where there was a creature that was chasing us kids. There was a handful of us in these tunnels where you had the piping up top, just kind of like in a basement somewhere, which I'm thinking it had to have been Montauk or another dumb. But the smell is unforgettable. It's like death. You smell bodily fluids, death. It's just disgusting, dank, dirty. And this thing kept chasing us. And it's interesting. I remember this woman that came, and she was screaming at it and chased it, and then came back and was checking us to make sure we were okay. And about 4 years ago, I had the same dream, only instead of being in my child form, I was that woman. And so I basically had portaled back in time and saw the kids, and I didn't realize I was one of the kids at first. I just saw the creature, and I was mad. And I was like, I'm gonna eat you. And so I was chasing it, and I killed it, and I ate it. It was just weird. It was like almost like I just engulfed this thing. And then when I went back to check on the kids, I saw one of those kids was me, and I just was like, what? It was so trippy. I remember the trip care at Montauk, the looking glass machine, and there was like these weird like bar things that went over. It was a really big circle thing, like a cauldron with a chair in it, and we would sit in it, and it would start to oscillate around us. And if we could take the chair with us, then they used us for things. And so I just remember traveling around and doing things, and then eventually piloting a ship. And we would have to meditate and make sure that the energy frequencies stayed constant, so that basically the Philadelphia experiment type thing didn't happen again. So when we were going to hyperspace or the astral, basically people weren't going to be stuck into each other or the ship or anything. And so that was basically the pilot navigator's job. We had to make sure that that didn't happen. Very similar to Penny Bradley. I also have memories on Cirrus Colony. I believe that's where I knew Susan. I had a twin brother there that she was actually partnered with. And so I was thinking it was the one that she was trauma twinned to, but I don't remember my brother being that way. He was a very gentle, very loving person. And so I'm still trying to figure out and remember who that was. But we were being chased, and we had a bunch of records that basically we had memorized by turning them backwards into mirrors. And she had gone into the hangar to get into her ship, and I was trying to warn her about this person that was after. And he stabbed me in the side, one side and in the front, and it hit my left ovary and my kidney. And I dropped to the floor, and my partner was trying to help me and drag me to the med bed so that I didn't bleed out and die. And this person shot Susan, and she went hitting the floor. And I remember that was a really traumatic point. I also worked with Mantis people in the Genesis tanks with the Genesis tanks. It's like a giant looking Easter egg looking tank thing that had different colors of kind of a gel liquid that had sentient. It's like the black goo, only it's been shifted, and so it's clear. And that's where we would basically implant the fertilized eggs that we were doing, if it was a chimera or whatever entity being that we were raising these infants. And we would watch the fetus develop. And then when the fetus was fully developed for that specific species, it would basically jettison the placenta. We would hang the placenta, let the blood drain into the infant, and cut the thing, and then basically take care of them. We were basically like nurses. We would breastfeed them. That was one of my favorite parts. I loved taking care of the infants because we just loved them so much. Because you don't get a lot of that in the SSP, and so anytime you could get some sort of snuggle up with something, you took it. And the green lady, that's what I call her, because I can't speak Mantis. It's like this high chirping sound if they make a sound. She was probably about a 14-foot looking mantis, kind of a bright green. And she would do something to the guys in the lab coats and the soldiers to where they would fall asleep, because they wouldn't let us love the babies. They would just be like, just feed it, and then just put it away. And they were just very rough and very abrupt and very rude. And so she had a lot of compassion on us and the babies. And so we would take care of them and love them, just because I've always been of the belief that, everyone needs to know love, even if it's going to be a super soldier, because if you never know love, then you're never going to know compassion. Excuse me. And so that was a fond memory of being able to take care of those infants. I was also a rescue and search and rescue medic and on Mars, and we would pick up body parts at different areas, like if a sandworm or a spider or something had eaten somebody or dismembered them, we would pick up the parts and go throw them in regen and figure out who was who and what was what. Sometimes there was native Martians, unfortunately, were mind wiped and used as soldiers, which I was thoroughly against, because I don't like kidnapping, and I didn't like that, because the Martians are so gentle. They're such a gentle species that they'll up and move if you go into their land. They won't fight. They're like, nope, we're good, we're done, we're out, and they'll go. They're kind of small. They look kind of native, kind of like Mayan type people, just little people, probably 5 feet, just little, but very, very shy. And so I always had compassion for them. I do remember Penny Bradley when I worked at that post. She was like a cyborg flying a shuttle thing, and a lot of times we would work on her her body, because the cybernetics, it's like the computer AI mixed with human parts, and so they would have a fragment of their soul in those, and so very sad. That's why I don't like a lot of what Elon Musk is doing. I don't trust that. I keep seeing Terminator. I don't like it. Let's see, Saturn Space Station is another one that I worked as a scientist. We did a lot of medical things there as well, with Regen again. Seemed like I did a lot of that. Oh goodness. Just, I guess, a lot of different things. Anyway, we could continue on.
Okay, so thank you for that. And my background with what I've uncovered so far is being in the German SSP groups and some of those programs, and traveling through time and operating on Mars. And I think I might have been in Saturn and Jupiter, but some of my memories are still somewhat locked because I was informed for security and safety. So I don't tend to push those memories. So I respect that. And I thank Rogue Dragon and Angie Maxwell, who has helped me uncover some of what I've done in the SSP and kind of pointed me in directions to see what resonates with me and what feels right, and and going from there. And so thank you for that. And what I wanting to turn and look at now is I have memories of doing like peace treaties and helping other beings, other races out there. And more importantly, I have memories of helping other people in the SSP when they need help, and operating here in the planet and doing missions, like choosing to do missions of going and trying to rescue kids in tunnels before they get taken off world. And so I want to turn the floor over to Danny, Rogue, and Susan to see, do they have memories of doing that as well, and what their experiences are.
I remember, I'm trying to remember what place it was. It was a planet that we went down on. There was a group of us that were, it was kind of weird because we didn't actually go down with a ship or a pod. It's almost like Star Trek, where we were beamed down, if that even sounds right. It was weird. But I remember we were jettisoned down on this planet, and there was a bunch of, what are they called? The xenomorphs. They were actually really upset because I guess there was a mining operation going on, and it disturbed one of their colonies, and so they were attacking, which they don't usually do. Because xenomorphs are usually really docile, and I think they eat things like plankton, and I mean they don't really eat big things like we eat animals. They really don't do that, from what I remember. And it's not like the movie Alien when they're like I mean, they usually are like shy and they'll get away from you, but they were actually attacking. And so we were trying to rescue these children basically from the colony, from whatever parents that, we had found with parents that were dead, and we were trying to get these kids out. And I actually remember that there was another soldier. Her name was Crystal Cedar. I have lost contact since. But she was with me, and we were helping get these kids out, and they had this capsule that we would put them in to try to get them up into the ship. But like for some reason, like something was locked and we couldn't get them up, and so the kids were like jumping down these chutes, and I'm like, no, we're trying to stop them. And so that was a really challenging rescue mission because you know how kids are. Sometimes they won't listen. They're scared. They're running. And so we were trying to get these kids and get them away from the xenomorphs before, they would get harmed. And that was really, I remember it was really scary because we were running, and it was like with my super suit, I could jump a lot further, higher, run faster. And I was going up this stairwell, and I was looking down and looking up, and this thing was coming at me. And so I decided, no, I need to go back down. And so I jumped. And when I hit the floor, I broke my ankle, but the suit like corrected it really fast so I could keep going, and I could feel the pain of the broken leg, but I was still able to go. So I'm like, God, I need some of that here. But I just remembered distinctly like different things like that we were just scared because these things were, it's like stepping on fire ant mound. They're going to come after you. But I think we did get quite a few children out, some adults. And then later on, we went back once things hushed down and we collected bodies so that we could do regen. But that was a crazy one that I remember that it felt good that we were able to at least do some rescue. But sometimes I think back and I'm like, maybe it would have been better to just wait until everything hushed and regen everybody. I mean, what do you do when you've got that adrenaline and you want to help?
Right. No, I totally understand. And yeah, and it's interesting how we point out like the suit like helps heal our bodies so we can keep going. And I remember making I comment about, like doing like the Superman meets Neo landing where he hits the ground and the ground kind of bubbles down under the pressure and cracks up, and just standing up and being like, okay, what's going on? And being like, nothing hurt, all's good, good to go. And thinking that, making this kind of entrance kind of puts the persona out of to everyone of, okay, things just got real. We need to be careful. So, Danny, were you wanting to comment?
Yeah, I don't really remember a lot of before I started integrating alters, because I have alters now that are active in their own way, on their own. They're sovereign, I guess, if you want to say it like that, part of their own missions and stuff. But prior to that, most of my memory involving kids was not. It was either being part of the kids that were being trafficked, or whatever operations they had in moving the kids around and stuff. So, but now the most recent one I have is of a group of us being on, I don't know what planet this was. It was some colony. It was very similar to Earth. It had high-rise building. There was water up. It was sort of like a beach, but a little different. But we went in to rescue these kids. They were hybrid kids. And I don't know what about these kids was so important in getting them out of this colony or whatever. But I do know that we went in there. It was like I don't know. I don't know if this was a German colony or what this was. But the kids were all hybrid, and I believe they were dragon hybrids. So we went into this building, and we had all the kids in the building, and there was these. They were little dragons with wings. Obviously, dragons have wings, but they were little, and they were mind controlled and being used to attack us. And they had these spears that had some kind of toxins or neurotoxin in the spear, and they were trying to kill us with it. So I do remember, trying to protect the kids and going on the outside of the building to try to fend off these little dragons and catching one of the spears. But once I got the spear in my hand, they seemed to leave me alone. I don't know why that was, but anyway, we got the kids all rounded up. There was probably 30 to 40 kids there. We loaded them onto this ship and portaled them out of there somewhere safe. So I think we were basically stopping the kids from being experimented on. Um, so that's my most recent memory of rescuing kids.
Cool. And yeah, and one thing that's interesting is to note, and I'll ask you, Susan, in a second, is we don't know once we're rescue the kids if they come here or if they go somewhere else off world to be kind of therapeutically treated in a way. So I just know, like, my experiences, they're there. People come and they're like, okay, yeah, we're with you. We're going to go take them. And you're like, okay, have at it. And you're off on the next mission. And so, yeah, it's interesting because it's like, it's kind of ironic that we view ourselves as like saving the kids, but we don't ever know what happens to them.
I think the ones that we rescued ended up on Mars. You know, they've redone a little bit of some of the places on Mars, and I believe we took them there to be rehabilitated and maybe become part of the colony there in a safe way. No more being used and abused.
Well, that's something good to hope for because, yeah, I don't think they could come back here after experiencing all of that and be like going, hey, mom and dad, I'm back.
Yeah, these kids were hybrids, so I don't know if they were, somebody's alter or somebody's genetics used to make these kids, or where the human genetics came from that made them into the dragon hybrids, but they were definitely probably not from here anyway, so that's why they went to Mars.
And Elena Danan actually recently was talking about the Federation was doing missions to help the hybrids and rescuing the hybrids. So there you go. There's, possible another connection for you, Danny, about that with the hybrids. And Susan, what has been your positive experiences or dealings with the kids?
With the kids, I don't remember saving any from any place except taking kids astrally, their souls, out of Montauk at different times, because it seemed like a lot of times when they'd send us to programs, and if we rebelled, they'd send us back to Montauk and make us kids and do terrible shit to us as kids. And I don't know if anybody else remembers stuff like that. I mean, I've different
I
experiences
remember
where I
you would
remember.
take me. I remember you would sing songs like Over the Rainbow, but you would put codes in it. Instead of singing the actual song, you would put like, meet me here, meet me at a specific location. And so I do remember that. You did a lot of training with me on astral bilocation and how to get
Well,
out of myself whenever we were being tortured. And so that I was very grateful for. That's why I call you Mama.
yeah, because I would sing to the kids and change the words. And one place looked like High Brazil. It looked like a place with rainbows and fairies and things like that. And there's there was a couple other secret places we had. If we could get out of body and they didn't use tech to hold our souls, because I have a lot of memories where I went out of body, but I'm still like up on the ceiling looking down on stuff. But when I look back at stuff, when I remote view, I'll be like a third person standing there. And also, like one time Jamie's song was missing, or Maria's song was missing, and I was like, wait a minute. And because I can telepath with her, I could look through her son's eyes, and I'm like, he's walking up these cement risers and the door looks like this. And she's like, oh, that's my ex's house. And we are like, oh, thank God he went home.
Yeah, we
We're
definitely went
all
through a
worried.
bout where he was kind of running away from home and skipping school. That was a scary night, but it was really cool. We could see him, and it was
Yeah,
really
that
cool.
was
We found
wild
him.
how I just thought of him, and I was looking at I was looking out of his eyes, and they would do that, and yeah, we could do all kinds of weird stuff like bilocate into people's bodies, and that was a thing where yeah, when people would try to harm us or capture us, they'd come with these weird black helmets, and they had like the gray looking eyes, like that was impressed into this. It looked like a slick plastic, but it was made out of something else. I don't know what it was. And like the pilots, if you see Black Hawk pilots and stuff, that people that ride on the Black Hawk, their helmets kind of trigger me. Um, but they would have to catch us with those helmets because otherwise we psionically get in their head and I can boil their brain. I can make them harm each other. And I remember seeing, I remember, yeah, I would instigate stuff because they'd be like, "Oh, Susan, come in here and calm him down." But I remember standing there, and it was this circle. I don't know where we were, if we were on Earth or another planet or underground somewhere, and they had the big test tubes, or somehow they dropped us in the regen one, and I saw him in this yellow liquid, and I could see it, his hair like all hanging in the water like this. And then all of a sudden he wakes up and he starts crawling out. And he's pissed. So he's just like glaring at one and glaring, and yeah, you could do that, and they just started killing each other, and it was bad because we could just get in their head and do stuff. It's similar to but more powerful than if they use scatterers a lot of times when you try to remote view stuff. um
Kind of
but
reminds me of the helmets that they would make us wear too when they didn't want us to use our abilities. Somehow they'd lock them on us.
Oh, I remember going on a transport ship somewhere, and the guys were sitting on the bench, and I'm standing there, and I had my helmet in my hand, and I hit the one guy in the head because I'm a telepath, and I could hear I want to do to her, and when I slammed him with my helmet and real hard, he had a bloody nose, and the guy sitting next to him was like pointing at his helmet. He's like, "You're a dumbass." Like, I have my helmet on so she can't hear me because I got
Oh,
fucked up last time, was basically what he was saying.
oh my God. I'm trying to remember some of the other. It's like I start thinking, and then it's like, it comes and goes, comes and goes. And Susan and I actually have a lot of encounters together that I remember. Besides the ships.
Yeah, because that time I got shot, she was coming with me because I was pregnant and I was going to leave. And it was like the 1980s or something on Earth.
Right.
And so we could have escaped because I remember that whatever it was, they didn't have a hatch or anything on the flight deck. And I remember smelling Earth's atmosphere when I started walking up to the flight deck because I was on one and I was going up to the top one where my ship was. I could see my ship, and nobody's ever described my camouflage on my ship yet. And I got shot in the back, and then I like skidded across the flight deck. And next thing I remember, because went unconscious, I'm strapped down in like this dentist chair, and there's like 3 or 4 guys along this one wall, and they've got those black helmets on so that I can't do anything to them, and I'm strapped down. My partner was strapped down next to me, and Amaria was on the third dental chair, and they're just giving us one drug that they put in, made me really cold, and the other one burned. And then we came back here because that was our punishment, to be sent back because like a lot of times it did suck because you'd fall in love or whatever when you're out there with somebody, and of course, you know, you love your friends that you're with out there too, and you might have liked that life, and you don't want to leave. 'Cause, yeah, seeing a time soldier coming for you isn't fun. I saw time soldiers were in the mirror when I moved out here before I went to settlement on the house, because I woke up because there was time cops were it was weird because they had come through the full length mirror in the motel room and they were standing there looking at us. He was asleep on the bed, but I wasn't. I'm just looking like, what the fuck's going on? And then they turned around and went back through the mirror. So I'm not sure what happened that time, if I was dropped off and saw, or if they were just coming to see what I was doing in this timeline. Yeah.
Oh, I
'Cause
was
I
remembering
don't
when
feel
you were
like I'm
talking
in my
about.
correct timeline either.
Yeah.
So, and then there's, like, I remember being in the Victorian era, and then Amari had things that there's a picture of, what is it, me and you and, oh my God.
Trying to remember the picture I found of you. I've actually found several pictures of people that I know, from like World War One, World War Two, black and white pictures. One of them is Laura Eisenhower, myself, and what's her head? Brain fart. Shoot. Stephanie
Stephanie.
Farlow. And that one really, I was like, what? Holy cow. It was so tricky, or like trippy. And then there's another picture of me from the 1400s with the Collins line. And I keep trying to figure out, I've emailed the person that made the website several times and I've never gotten a response. I'm like, who is this person? I want to know their name. And
Shoot, and I know I'm related to you through the Collins bloodline.
right. And then like the Irish side, I've got some Scottish blood, Merovingian, German, Russian. I have a lot of different tribal lines. And then there's stuff that I'm still trying to figure out, because like if I go vegan, which I did for about 4 years, my eyes shapeshift, and I actually have it on video and I've got pictures of it. Susan, I remember your head was turning purple and you had that, like you said, the Lyran, like your lip was all puffed out. And I'm like, what? So we were taking pictures of each other on that chat. And then I actually was doing some energy work on a friend and it freaked her out because I was holding her feet and I just kind of looked up and my eyes had like the, looked like the dragon eyes or the cat eyes. She was freaking out. She's like, what are you? And I'm like, what? I'm just me.
Yeah,
and so
I've
I
been
figured
told
out it was
about
that the vegan thing. So I started eating meat again and I don't notice my eyes shifting. So, oh, the dumbs.
mine
Yeah.
still
The
do.
underwater and the tunnels.
But is
I
it
do
when you
have
do energy work that your eyes shift more, do you think?
Yeah. Well, if I'm going vegan, but I'm noticing if I have animal protein, I don't shapeshift. So I've tried to keep eating meat because it scares people. But I do have a video on my YouTube channel where I'm wearing the top hat, and if you look at that first couple of seconds, my eyes shift, and it's like they have this white film that go really fast. It's really weird. I was gonna edit it out, but I'm like, people need to see that there are those of us that shapeshift and we're not crazies like the deep state. Yeah, we're related, but we're nothing like them. No way. I mean, I am like, get them white hats. Let's get all these motherfuckers, because it really pisses me off when people hurt children, and
Yeah.
they need to stop taking children. We do not consent. If you want to use adults, consenting adults for your military programs, by all means, but fucking leave kids alone. That's all we ask. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I do get very serious and very angry whenever I think of people being harmed, especially children.
Yeah, but I remember being in space the first time. I was 14. Well, that job I had, I was doing IT stuff. Like, I remember having like a clipboard and I had to go do redundancy, like all these little knobs and stuff. It was like 1970s computers. That was a boring job.
Ooh, reminding me, actually, the computers. One of the memories I had was I was driving, and I don't know if this was an alternate timeline or if it was just I was remembering it in the dream. It's like that's how I was remembering it. But I was driving this little Ford Escort that I had, and with my kids, and there was this road that came around, and a semi truck was carrying like a big red type rocket thing, and it actually came off the road and barreled down, and it hit the side of the mountain, and there was a guy in a truck behind us that we both ran out and looked, and this where it had hit the mountain, it had these big doors, kind of like metal riveted doors that looked like you could drive a couple semis through it, and it had the Nazi sign on it. And so we went through, there was another entrance, like through the rubble and everything, that we kind of climbed over the rocks, my kids and me. And when we went inside, there was like a room that had this giant, it looked like a room sized computer. And then like World War II type, like the Morse code machines. There was like some old looking studio type mics. And I remember opening the drawer and was looking at stuff in the drawer, and I picked up like a necklace and was looking at it. And this woman came in, kind of heavy, stout woman that was wearing kind of a khaki looking uniform with the Nazi logo. It was like a red band around her shirt or her sleeve. And she had like the officer's hat. And I remember she spoke German to me and I understood it. But she was basically like, "Why are you here?" And I looked up and I'm like, "I'm sorry." And I put the stuff in the drawer. She's like, "Follow me." And so I went with her. And there was this room that had all of these weird creatures. There was one that I remembered, it looked like little birds that had panda faces. And I was just like, "They're so cute. I want some." She's like, "I can't let you take them, but if you want to come visit." I mean, she was really friendly, so I didn't feel scared. But she was like, "You do need to leave, though, because there's going to be soldiers coming." And so I thought it was strange that that came in the form of a dream that way. But it's almost like I was bilocating and remote viewing what was going on, and she saw me and we were interacting. And so I'm like, "Why would I have my kids with me?" And there's this guy in the truck, and we're all like, "What the fuck?" It's so weird, but it was so detailed. I wish I would have grabbed my journal because I have a lot of different things that I had written in as I was lucid dreaming and meditating. I was pulling in different memories, and it's amazing the detail just that I remember from those. But yeah, I do remember those room-sized computers around World War I, World War II, and so I'm thinking it must have been like a time loop or something, or it was bizarre.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of curious, with everybody has different backgrounds of what programs they were a part of and everything. And I'm kind of curious if any of you had experiences like I did of going and doing like peace treaties and forming alliances with races that were out there on different planets.
Yeah, I remember going to this one place, and their culture was different. Like if they were mated, they couldn't look you in the eye, and the only man I was allowed to look in the eye that was that was married was the historian. So I'd have to sit in his office and tell him about Earth culture because he was doing. And I had the best time hanging out with the professor, and we'd tell stories and stuff, and he was really cool, and the people were really nice, and they'd have you do stuff like that. But then sometimes you'd find out that they just sent you to go basically infiltrate these people, and you'd fall in love with them and stuff, and then they blew them up because they didn't pay taxes or something. That's kind of shit that pissed me the fuck off. But yeah, there was some cool aliens. I don't know what I did out there with the Mayans, but they were helping me when I found the trauma twin. We were getting attacked by black magic and stuff in the here and now, and I remember talking to remember the blonde haired lady. I'm not gonna say her name, Maria, but anyways, we went to do a FaceTime with her, and she's like, "What's on the wall behind you?" So we were looking, and we could see him on the screen with the HD. It looked like there was all these little lizards, and there was hundreds of them, but we didn't notice them initially. But after we saw them on the camera, we could see them. We were like, "Shit!" Then we had to blast all those things, because I remember coming out of the bathroom that night. I kind of did one of these things because I thought he was standing there in the dark, and I almost ran into him, and I said, "Hey, where are you?" And he's like, "I'm in the bed." And I was like, "Well, who's here next to me?" And I flipped the light on, and the shadow man was gone. And that's what happened the night before. But we were in New Orleans. So we were outside in New Orleans, but still, a lot of weird shit happens. We had the shadow man in the freaking room. I don't know who the frick that was. And the next day, there was those gecko creatures on the wall. We had to zap. And then when we tried to leave there, then some other weird shit happened where one of the girls that I was in the group with, she's this little Lyran starseed Ninaru. We're at the going to the shops, and I was outside talking to some other people, and I can hear her in my head. She's telepathed me. She's screaming, "Help, help." And I just said, "Can you hold my bag so I can run it down the street into the store where I hear her calling me from?" And she's in hysterics. And I was like, wow, that was really weird, because this is the first time I met this lady in person, but I just knew like she was part of my star family, and we connected. And then she's a doula. She's super cool. She's up in Canada. And all this crazy stuff was happening the entire weekend. But then when we get to the airport, stuff I would gotten from that occult store, I don't know, it just felt like things were attached to me. And I just threw them in a trash can at the airport. And then we ended up letting his flight fly back to Iowa. It was really weird. And we were flying to Philadelphia. But when we were going through where we were going to get checked through security, there was other people walking on the side, and we were like in the middle. It was pretty busy. And then there was all these Mayan people on the left side. But all the Mayan people, when I look at them, they're like, and there wasn't any black people there, which was weird. But there was all these white people. I think there might have been one or two black people in the whole crowd going through. And but this is significant because remember that movie with Denzel Washington with the demon with a name that starts with an A, because I don't want to bring up his name. But anyway, there was a demon, and it was jumping in a white person, and then it would just turn around here. And give me like this. Oh, it was so freaking creepy. And I was like, of course they send the demon to try to scare me. And then we'd look, and we saw the Mayans on the left side, and they were all smiling at us. And I was like, this is really fucking weird, man. This demon won't jump into any melanated person, only white people, and it would just jump from person to person and turn around and sneer at us. And whatever I did out in space, I'm telling you, I did something good with the Mayans, because I felt really protected by them, and they were there for me. I know it sounds corny, but a lot of weird black magic shit went on when we got together. But they did put a lot of demonic things on people in the programs. And I know the ladies here have been working hard on themselves, because you got to get that stuff off of you. And then once you start to glow and your light body activates, it's like a moth to a flame, because they're going to try to come and,
Right.
basically,
I've seen a lot of
put
those in
cords on
Vegas.
you, and it's like, parasite off you, and then you're wondering why you're having heart palpitations, you can't sleep, you're having a fever, you're having severe anxiety, and it's because people are parasiting off of you purposely, because they know what you are, and you're kind of oblivious, going, oh shit, I didn't know I had to ground, and I had to clean my energy every day, because people can parasite off of me, and protect your space. But you have to do that, especially if you're in these programs. I gotta go get something to drink.
I've had a lot of, I guess you could say, alliances. I think it's just because of the work that I've done with search and rescue with different entities. I don't care what your race, what your whatever is. If we're rescuing you, I care that you're okay. And I want to make sure that you're okay. And so I've always had compassion on every creature that we have basically picked up, and they can sense that. And so I've always had a lot of protection. I just feel really grateful for that, just because I don't know, I don't really have a lot of problem with stuff. I mean, yeah, we get attacked. I've had shadow beings and entities where I've had like the sleep paralysis. I've been taken by the grays. I do have a memory that was very vivid when I was 5 years old, that I was taken and I woke up on the table. It was like this cold, just like a steel table is what it felt like to me, with bright lights. And when I looked over, it's like one of the grays was down close to me, just looking at me. And it's like trying to project peaceful like things to keep my mind off what was going on. And I'm just like freaking out, and it's trying to keep me from freaking out. And it's like weird because I keep having these time lapses where I'll go back in as an adult and sit up, and I'm just like, you leave me alone. And I'll just be like getting really aggressive with them, and they're freaking out because I'm like gonna tear them to shreds. But that one, I don't know exactly what they were doing besides, I mean, they were harvesting eggs. But other than that, I'm not exactly sure. Um, I do have a lot of connection with the mantids, just working with the green lady. So I do have a lot of love, even for whenever I pick up a praying mantis. I'm like, they're so cute. And so I love my little bugs. I'm a big avid gardener. And so I always love just the creatures, and I just always felt really protected, just because, like I said, I have deep respect because, you know, we're in their territory, or we're rescuing something or someone. You know, that's somebody's child, their partner, their whatever. It doesn't matter what kind of creature it is. Everyone has a family, and everyone deserves respect and love. And so I've always just made it a point to make sure that they feel safe, and to try to understand where they're coming from. Because, you know, if I was one of them being picked up by this crazy looking meat suit thing, like, what in the fuck are you doing with me? That's got to be terrifying. And so I just really have a lot of compassion for any of those creatures.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because amongst doing like the treaties, I have memories of, and I feel like even if it was to go against the programs, but I would fight to defend those that we allied with and be like, yeah, and if it was us trying to eliminate them, I would be standing in the way and being like, no, these are our allies.
Exactly.
I'm not going to let you just take them down, and would stand with them.
I don't like how the deep state for eons has always been, let's, you know, go in and conquer and slay them all and get rid of them and take over their land and get their precious resources. That's wrong. There's so many beautiful planets out there that they deserve to have those planets. That's their home. So I'm totally with you on that. Totally with you on that.
And that's why I laughingly say they don't let us out in space, because we can't handle it. Because look at what we're doing right now, and it's like, imagine doing that on a galactic scale. And it's like, yeah, and yes, we are somewhat doing it, but I feel like there is a rebellion starting within the programs, where a lot of people in the programs are starting to wake up and be like, no, you're not sending me. Do whatever you want, but I'm not going. And we're actually, in turn, going to facilities where we know we're being stored and taking them down, unlike anybody else can. And so it's like, yeah. And so the closest way I like to look at it is, if any of you have seen the Stargate series, where the Jaffa rose up against the Gould, I'm like, that's what we are now. Is we're like that little hub of the Jaffa that's going into other places and saying, "Look, you guys, we don't have to do this anymore. We can make a choice now. Well, we've got our freedom. They're not our rulers."
I love that. That's so true. There's definitely those of us that stand our ground. We're just like, nope, no more. We've had it. I mean, there's those super soldiers that are shits too, but it is what it is. I hope that they can find their path.
My Gen
Yeah.
X brain is over here going, "We're not gonna take it." That song's
Yeah.
playing in my head.
I love
We're
that
not
song.
gonna take it anymore.
The other song I like is by Muse, and it was in the Matrix movie, if you remember it, where they're like, "You're not going to control us. You're not going to brainwash us anymore. We're taking our power back." That's the other song I like. That one, and "We're Not Going to Take It." Yeah. How about you, Danny? Have you experienced this?
Are you talking about taking down some of the negative things that were, or not going, I guess being rogue, is that what you're talking about?
Well, being rogue and doing like peace treaty work and doing, making alliances out there, friends.
Well, yeah, I mean, my main altar, the one, her name is Victoria. She does a lot of these type of things. But there's a lot of things that I don't get to know because it's, OPSEC, for my protection, everybody else's protection within the missions. So most of like the most that I remember doing anything like this was us going in on a planet to help a colony. It looked like Dune. It was the people very much dressed like Dune and well, I guess not Mad Max and Dune. This is two different things. But it was like Dune, that whole setting, but the people were dressed like the ones on Mad Max. And there was and there was a controlling force that controlled both sides of the colonies, and they pitted a war against each other. So we had to go in. We had an alliance with one of the colony groups, and we went in and helped them free themselves from the oppressor, and basically take down the other people that they were fighting with. But ultimately, it was, they were people
Yeah, I'm thinking they're not wanting you to share this, Danny, because your mic is starting to cut out. So while we wait for her mic to come back, I just want to again thank all my guests for coming on and for sharing a night of, I guess you could say the brighter side of the SSP. I don't know that there is a bright side that's all light, but we're working on it. Just like things are happening here. So, we're waking up and taking time to do everything. And I think Danny's back.
I'm back. It seems like every time I talk, my computer goes out. The internet, this weird stuff. So I'm sorry. I apologize about that.
Oh, you're good. And I just chop it up to they just don't want that information out.
Probably not.
But so one last thing I want to see, if is unique to some people or in the nature of many is, do you go if you can you sense if someone in the programs is in trouble? Do you go to help, or do you leave them alone to do their missions?
Most of the people that I sense are people that I'm connected to now, um, friends, or the people that you do missions with. A lot of times you're telepathically linked up, so in that case you are kind of quantumly entangled with whatever part of you is linked up with them. So for me personally, if that happens, it is with either somebody in my crew or close friends that are also in the programs, things like that. That's the only time I ever really get that happen.
Yeah, and so you would choose to help them, right, Danny?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it is a quantum level that they didn't anticipate amongst everyone in the SSP that we can link to and be able to go and find, whether they're here in another galaxy, another universe, another dimension, that we're able to find them and help.
Susan and I just do that anyway. Like sometimes she'll text me, "You okay, Mama?" And I'll be having a rough day, or I'll just text her or something and be like, "You okay?" I think we usually definitely sense that whenever we are connected like we are, just because there's just that deep bond and that love that we have. I mean, we're family. We've known each other for so long. It's just we're family.
Yeah. How about you, Susan?
The telepath thing? Was that the question?
If you're sensed, like, say, Rogue or another person was off world and in trouble, if you sensed it, would you stop everything and send like an altar or yourself to go help, or would you go, well, I can't compromise them and what they're doing, so I'll just wait and see?
I usually can't stand it when I can hear them hurting, so I usually text them and say, "What's wrong? I feel you," because I'm trying not to pop up remote viewing them. But yeah, they could sometimes. I guess they could be suffering from stuff that's happening off world because they don't always send us back healed. And I can
Right.
tell that just from doing the cranial sacral therapy work that I do, because I'll go to release something sometimes, and it's from something in the programs from out of time, and I'll have to stop because I'm in the, because this one person was in the programs and they were having migraines. I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to unwind each tooth. So I put some gloves on, went to do that. And when his head started rolling, when I touched one tooth, that usually happens with the unwinding. But the thing was, when I did that, I could see somebody ripping all his teeth out because they wanted a little boy with no teeth. And yeah, we had to stop because it was freaking us both out. Man, it was threw up. Um, so that's what I mean when they send us back and we're not healed, because like our fascia's holding these memories, and just getting in a certain position, you can relive it like that. When I'm going to release a constriction in the fascia, it's pretty wild. They used to cut the feed when I'd say that, so I guess I'm allowed to say that now.
Yeah, so I think we're getting towards the end of this episode. And so thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us. And thank you to everyone in the chat room who's been chatting and those that are watching. And I want to kind of leave everything with a kind of positive twist to it. And so I'm kind of curious, like for me, my positive twist would be is to remember, we're sometimes under controlled by something else. So if, you're doing something that you've come across and you're like, this isn't me doing it, that's probably true. You're being controlled. So therefore, don't beat yourself up that you did this, that remember who you are and just believe in who you are. And they can't take that from you. And you have 4 people here who kind of can attest to that, everything we've been through, we still are who we are. So do any of you want to share something like that, a positive twist?
I think that's an excellent way to put it. As I've come across things like that, I've had to step back and really just kind of view it from another stance of, okay, this happened. I don't have to be that way, and I can choose a different path. And so just using the Hoffman process is a lot of what I use with my integration. And so I'll basically take myself back down to that little child, and whatever the offender is, I'll take them back down to a child as well. They'll both be about 3 or 5 years old. And I'll just say, what happened to you that was so bad that you became what you did and you hurt me? Why'd you do that? Just so I can have a greater understanding. And it's really amazing what you can do. So anyone out there that's going through these struggles with your, PTSD, night terrors, you're going to go through that. The dark night of the soul is very, very, very difficult. But there's tools out there that can help you. I do love the Hoffman process. There's other things. I also love the Gateway process, the Monroe Institute. That's when you learn to hemisync, and they've got audios that you can look on the Monroe Institute website. You can also find different ones on YouTube. I'll leave that up to you to find. You'll find the ones that are right for you when it's time. And just like Michael said, don't beat yourself up. Just remember to step back. A lot of us were controlled. Some people, we do have parts of us that are twisted. It sucks. They use our astrology. And so look at your sidereal astrology. Tropical is deep state, and it's about 20 to 24 degrees off. I know I've had people argue with me till they're blue in the face. Yeah, it's about like religion. Just I stick with sidereal. It's direct planetary placements, and if you really want to know yourself, look up your astrology, and you can look at what houses you're in, and just look at each house with each planet, what that means, and you can start to understand, oh wait, this is where I have my weaknesses. This is where I can have my strengths as I pull through that. And it's been a really healing map for myself, and I like to use it just getting to know other people. I like to pull up the astrology and just kind of look at, whenever I'm working with someone doing session work, I like to look at their astrology. I like to get into their energy field. Of course, I always ask for permission, and I do a bilocational astral projection. I cover my eyes. I've got my EMF hat that I usually wear, and I do use the ICU technique. You guys can look that up as well. It's they're using it with children to read books and play blindfolded. And it's just being able to use a different part of your brain. They call it the pineal gland, but in reality, when you block the light to your eyes, your pineal gland is shut down, and so you're actually remote viewing. And so it's another way of being able to see, and I can see the energy bodies, and so I'll do different scans, go through. I actually did a session on Michael last week just to kind of give him a little taste of what I do. I've done session work on Susan. She's done it on me, where I can actually feel her pull me onto her table when she's working, because she's able to do that. I usually go to the person rather than taking them to me, but everybody has their ways of doing their light work, their spirit work, their metaphysical work, whatever you want to call it, whatever you're comfortable with calling it. And there's no right or wrong. And so just keep exploring yourself, keep looking inside, find your gratitudes, find what's best about you, and keep really just raising up that your strength within yourself. And I also practice the Christos, which is a metaphysical form of moving the cerebral spinal fluid. And it happens every month with each one of us on our moon cycle. And it's based again on the sidereal chart. So, just for an example, I'm a Gemini sun. And so when the moon gets into Gemini each month, it's about a 2.5 to 3 day period. And that's when the Christos, or the cerebral spinal fluid, is created. And you can pump it up to your spine. You can mix it up with the claustrum, and there's another oil. But there's a lot of really good videos that actually explain it. On my Facebook page, those of you that know me, it's on my tagged post that shows you how to use the Christos. And whenever I do energy work, I usually will clean and clear the Kundalini Kunda buffer and activate it so that you can actually do that work a lot easier. And so you're able to actually tap in, and I calibrate the pineal glands. I will calibrate your other energies. I check your cones, your chakra cones, and make sure that those are in the correct spin. So a lot of times we'll have reverse spin codes. And then also a lot of people that have a lot of deep depression or have been through Dark Fleet, Nachtwaffen, or Krieger, they have what's called the Anubian Black Heart. And it's basically a type of a device that it's very dismembering for you. It's very dark, it's very depressive. And so I remove that, I put the light back in, and I'll balance with different stone quality energies. And so everything has a frequency to it. I used frequency healing, just different things that I was trained in Montauk and other programs. And, each one of us, like I said, has our gifts. And so try to tap into your gifts and look at the most positive that you can, because the only way that we can do is go up from here, especially when you've hit rock bottom.
Cool, thank you. And Susan or Danny, do you want to go next?
I guess I can go next. Yeah, just keep learning and keep healing, because I think maybe my stuff's more integrated, because I remember just different levels of pissed off that I was in different programs. But then I worked undercover as a cop too, so, and then I would use different names and wear wigs and stuff. So that also thing, when people talk about alters, I'm like, damn, I used to have characters when I worked here. So but I also remember wearing wigs and stuff there for doing some secret squirrel stuff. And yeah, just keep healing. Like, even when I did my Reiki master training, it was the Holy Fire one. It was kind of boring. They didn't, like the other ones, they would come and activate like certain things on you for your Reiki levels. But the Holy Fire one was like 3 days of meditation. And then one day I'm meditating and I could see myself floating around the room. And in that meditation, I'm having visions that I'm collecting super soldiers in my dragon ship from different planets and taking them to different places to be healed. And then I'm shuttling them from the healing center to wherever they wanted to go. If they wanted to come back to Earth, they wanted to go be a colonist somewhere, they could go be a colonist somewhere. But that's what I was picking them up for, was to heal them. And that was pretty cool. And I'll have visions and stuff when I do things like that. I'm like, oh, wow. So I'm going to be doing that sometime in the future, or I did that. And, but also, yeah, I haven't even talked about stuff I remember with Danny, because I remember being in black uniforms, and we had most of our face covered, and we were in a cafeteria somewhere, and we had to be separate from all the other trainees or whatever it was there. We were doing some secret squirrel shit, but we just went there to eat. um, and then I have a lot more stuff with Amaria. But yeah, just you're going to end up researching stuff. I ended up researching a whole lot about my bloodline and stuff. I remember, because yeah, I was a dummy and did my DNA test when I didn't know any better. And a a lot of it'll start making sense. And then you can even tell what tribe of Israel you're from, depending on what your family crest is. Like the fleur de lis supposed to be the Illuminati. I mean the Anunnaki. So you're gonna do a lot of research, and then like I'm a healer, but I go to Amaria, I go to other people to be healed because everybody's got their different gifts and can see different things that the other one can't see. Like Amaria's even removed. So I was having an issue with love bite, and I could actually see the love bite text she was pulling out of me, which I like being a healer and being able to see. So when I have another healing master that's working on me, I can actually see the things they're removing. But if I'm trying to heal myself, I don't necessarily see what I'm trying to get. I mean, I know it's there, but I can't see it like I can see it when I can just be out of body and just concentrate on what they're doing and push some more energy into it. I know it sounds weird, but I like that. But
No, it's
that
funny
tech,
it's funny you say that, because when Rogue was working on me, she was like, "Oh, well, you have this implant I can remove," and I was like, "Wait, if this is going to interfere with my healing, leave it alone." It's like, I don't want to lose my healing aspect, and she's like, "No, it's not going to affect that." Oh, well, then get rid of it. But yeah,
yeah,
it's
because
funny
usually
how we're like, we get so
some
used to stuff. We're like, "Hey, don't interfere with this part."
You're also programmed. All of us are programmed to not to want to remove certain things or not to want to try to get these memories back. Oh, it's for your own good. Oh, okay, then I won't. You're programmed. So a lot of us have a lot of deep programming installed into us, especially when you're first getting memories back and first coming into maybe knowing that you're part of this whole shebang. Um, you really have to work against programming um, that tries to steer you away from your path of getting your pieces back, like your soul pieces, your altars back, or even healing, because they steal, they siphon, they take your powers and your abilities, so that we aren't empowered here. And so you really have to work against the programming that tells you not to take that implant out, or not to do, not to follow your finding out about memories or whatever. So it is definitely stages that you go through, especially in the beginning, to take away the layers of the bullshit that they put on us. It's I don't know. I don't think I'm baffled anymore at the links they go through to keep us from having our true power back and being whole. It's pretty disgusting the things they do to us, but you just got to keep at it. And like you said, you have people that or we all have people that we know. The part that's tricky is finding somebody that you can trust in this day and age, that can open up yourself enough to allow them to help you. And so if you have friends that know somebody that they trust, then I think that's a good place to start. I know when I first started out, I really got screwed over quite a bit by people that were not trustworthy. Let's just say that. And really set me sideways for a little while in my path. So you just got to be careful with that. But yeah, that's all. That's all for me.
Yeah, trust is important, especially when dealing with all the stuff that we've been through. And when I say we, I'm meaning programmees, whether you're, you know, on a ship, or if you're a soldier or a technician somewhere, or, any role, whatever role it is, I feel like, either have alters that have done it, or we've done it ourselves and kind of moved up in ranks. I doubt any of us, the second they flick the switch, we're like, okay, you're at the top. So I think, yeah, it's important to find the people that you resonate with, and to trust your resonance, because everybody can share their own experiences and everything, and everyone's account is different. I mean, look at like being on a ship. You could talk to someone who is, as like they call in Star Trek, the lower decks, where you're the low ranks, not like cast worthy to show on screen. You're like the extra that's walking by, and they don't, and nobody communicates with everybody. And I always find that so strange that it's like my personality, I would be the soldier or the officer or the crew that's like, somebody walks by, it's like, hey, what are you doing down here? You don't usually come down here. What's going on? And being like, no, that's not how it is in the programs. And so I find that a little interesting, and how some of our nature is present and some isn't. But yeah, the important thing is like Danny and everyone was saying, is the most important key is find that you resonate with and trust. Don't just believe everybody that says, oh, you were this, this, and this.
And I'd like to add to that too. A lot of times I think people overreact because we've been programmed to do that. And so sometimes somebody might say something that they're really not meaning to be harmful. And so just remember the connection that you have, because there's a lot of that V2K or whatever it is trying to keep the dissonance in the community. And so rather than trying to figure out, well, what are they doing that's trying to harm, let's get out of that energy and try to think, what can I do for my neighbor, to serve? What can I do to love that person and to help lift them up? Is, we all have those times where we're just fucking pissed off and just feeling like shit that day. And it feels like everyone's just out to get you. Whenever you have those days, just step back and take a little personal time. And, don't say something or do something that might harm that friendship, because we all have those days, and none of us are meaning to ever be offensive or harmful, because we really truly do appreciate those that have come out. I mean, I love each and every one of you guys. There's other people that have been on shows that I care very deeply for, and so I'm hoping that we can all be able to come together and continue to come together and learn from each other and just try to be as positive as we can, because we don't need to stir that pot. There's too much negativity in the world, but even more so, there's more beautiful things in the world that we can focus on to be able to raise those vibrations and really help one another to heal.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, everything we're talking about. And I'm guessing this one guest kind of came in late, but Tandy, I'm going to let you know that this group may or may not be able to answer that, but we're talking about like ETs and alien beings and alien species. So I'm not sure if you.
There's
really
a lot of times that there are things in people's homes. More often than not, if you sense it, it's probably there. And so you can actually step in with your personal power. One of the things that I teach people with canceling contracts, whether it's a psychic attack or it's a family curse or any kind of cursing, whatever it may be, you have the power to cancel that. And so I address the entity, I address if it's somebody that may say it. So for instance, I'll just do it right now. So I address any entities, whether they are animate or inanimate, whether they are natural or unnatural, artificial or otherwise. You have your right to your free will, and you have your right to your self-determination, but you do not have a right to continue your war games. You must cease and desist immediately. We have no contracts. And then I imagine in my mind a portal that's turquoise in color, and I put it over my head, and I call it the Mother Ark portal. I say, you must leave. You must take everything that you have put onto me, onto my family, any cursings that you have had. If you've taken anything from me or my family, you must return it whole and the way it was intended immediately. And you must leave immediately. Either return to sender, return to source, or return to your place where you came from. So mote it be. and that you have every right to do that. We all have that ability. We all have that strength. And so you don't have to go to anybody. Some people think they have to go to a priest. They have to go to somebody that you don't. You just have to remember, address the entity, address that it does have its free will, that you have no contracts and it has to stop. And then, even if you don't think of the portal, just think, hey, return to sender. You're not welcome here. And they have to leave. If they don't, you can ask for your guardians, your guides, whatever you feel. Some people want to use the name of Jesus Christ, Hail Zeus, whatever it is that gives you that feeling of power. Step into that power and accept your power, because you have that very strongly. We all do. And so it's very simple. And that's all I do. And that's what I teach people, is that they can stand in their power.
Very well said. And yes, and that's the important thing. And that is standing in your power, because the second you waver or put doubt, you're inviting it right back. So always stand in your power, and always stand in the belief of yourself and that power. So with that, I'm going to say good night to everyone. Thank you again, and thank you, Rogue, for coming on for the first time. I know we've been on panel with someone else, but this is your first time here, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. And it's so much to read.
Thank you.
I can't even talk. It's an honor to reconnect with you.
Yes, so thank you. And I agree with Adam Marquise. This was a great show. And I think we shined a light onto not only the fact that there are women in the SSP. I think I might have put too many S's in that, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. It gets confusing sometimes, and that everyone has their differences of what they do, but in the end, I feel like, there is positive coming around, and that we all are taking our steps to do what we need to do to bring about positive into the world and take back, our power of what was done to us, and turn the negative to a positive and reinforce it. So thank you. And thank you to all of you for what you do. And I mean this with all of my heart. Thank you for your service, and thank you for doing what you do, and having the courage to come forward, share what you do. And like Danny's in my situation is, we don't have, the ability to share some of it for security reasons. And so that's, we appreciate that being welcomed as well, because I know that makes it harder for people to believe in the experiences when you say, well, I can't share that part. And so thank you for that. And I hope all of you have a wonderful night. And I love the fact that I can say this to this group, because it makes no sense to anybody else, but I hopefully will cross paths with you on the other side. And if you need anything, just let me know.
Thanks, Michael, for having us on.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we are going to sign out from that and enjoy the rest of our Sunday. Good night, everyone.
Good night.